city, a day in the life. I was on my own, catching a ride with the lady. Her hair hangs down past her thighs. Blue and pistol, she satisfies. Leather jacket, zipped up tight. And no big ones coming. Look for lost and found. Iron gleams bright in night city, where your appetite weighs you out to sunrise. She pulls my trigger, got me up alright. It's a danger pretty here in night city. Here in night city, got me up alright. Here in night city. The way you chase and tease me, get me up so high. We're on the rooftop and you don't compromise. Too many hollow, empty bodies lying around my street don't testify. You got to whisper now on your own, and so we keep on moving. Gotta take it slow, no. She pulls my trigger, got me up alright. It's a danger pretty here in our city. She pulls my trigger, got me up alright. It's a danger pretty here in our city. Here in our city, got me up alright. Here in our city. She pulls my trigger, got me up alright. It's a danger pretty here in
I'm ready.
Oh, except I have you set as brisk. That's not right. We have to fix
I
it.
can see that's.
You're welcome. I just wanted you
Hey,
to
maybe it'll
know.
get me some of those sweet block vote.
Who knows what it'll do. Anyways, guys, today I'm here once again back with Phantomite. We're doing a little bit of an interview schminterview. We have some things to talk about. I don't have a ton of questions this time. You're a returning candidate. I think this is the third time I've officially interviewed you for CSM.
It will be, yes.
I'm just out of the shower. I don't know if you can tell by my terrible hair. I have Zonuria hair right now. It's not attractive.
I'm not going to comment on that statement.
Why? What? Why?
Zenuria has lush, full head of hair that looked incredibly tidy at FanFest.
Oh, okay. Sure. Anyways, so, Phantomite, what's going on this year that's different than last year for you? Let's start off with that.
A whole bunch of exactly the same things, but yes, with some new additions. Something that I wanted last year was more opportunities for people to have progress and have content in smaller groups. And now I can see a lot more clearly what that actually looks like rather than just knowing it should be that concept.
What is your? There's a lot less contestants this year than there. How are your feelings about the smaller contestant pool?
It's an incredibly wide set of brand new people who haven't been running at all or for a few years. So I don't have as much experience with what people are like. I do have 3 or 4 people who I already think are likely to end up on my recommended ballot. So yeah, I've met some people that I think are going to be that would be very useful for members to be talking directly with CCP.
Absolutely. So what's your big ticket item that you're going into this campaigning season for? What are you trying to? What is the one concrete change that?
I'm looking to finish the job on not just citadels but all infrastructure, and into that I want to focus on splitting some of the purposes of citadels into uh, multiple individually balanceable states. Like, for instance, what I'm looking to do is split the purposes of citadels. Right now, you can use a citadel to live in it and to stage from it. And by stage from it, I mean at that moment in the heat of a battle, not on a larger tactical level. That's a different question. And I also want to address Ansiblex gates um, by either making them have a more trust-based mechanic, which is something that I've been considering for 2 years now, is various places where trust-based mechanics can come back. And I want to either do that or severely limit their scope, which would be adding fatigue to them.
Okay, we just talked at length for a little while in regards to, in particular, in the previous interview, we talked at length about difficulty for medium-sized groups and small-sized groups to be able to exist. And what are your current thoughts about the ecosystem in regards to those, and what would you do to fix it?
I think it's the easy. I think it's the easy answer that isn't a good answer to look at making special places for these groups to exist. I believe that even though it's a more difficult issue to address, I believe that the massive gigablocks of Eve need to be split up, and then that needs to happen naturally through no anti-sandbox mechanics. Um, this is going to be this is the most valuable concept to smaller groups, is the breaking up of the gigablocks into many more groups that are spread around more. Um, if we look at things like, for instance, filaments into nullsec are incredibly important for getting in and getting out of these places, but I don't like it as a solution. It's important that it exists and it's very well used, but I think it's a band-aid rather than fixing the actual issue. Something like filaments is all well and good, but it like Ansiblex, it's just allowing another class of people to skip the geography and make it meaningless. I want to address the problem of the existence of gigablocks at that scale as the solution to allowing smaller groups to have a better time and have more content.
Okay. What are your thoughts when null black candidates and null black people say, well, if you break up the big groups, no, those players will have nowhere to go?
Well, they can go to smaller groups.
What's to stop
It's I
them
mean
from
it's
just
it's
quitting?
literally as simple as that. I mean, if the accusation is, hey, if you break up the gigablocks, then if these people can't be a member of a 40,000 man coalition, they're going to quit Eve. Well, I would point to the fact that the PCU is 20,000 very often right now, when the PCU used to be 50,000 or more. So those people, a lot of them quit because everything got sucked away into the gigablocks. So breaking them up, I think, is a huge opportunity for there to be more content in Eve, not less.
When you say more content, how are we going to have these record-breaking brawls without the large giga blocks?
We're not.
We're not. Isn't that
No,
eliminating a ton of free
it's
advertisement for CCP?
don't give a toss. The game needs to have content in it for people to come and stay. So it's all well and good breaking records, but if people come to the game expecting it to be as epic as CCP make out because of these record-breaking battles, and then they find that those wars only happen once every 4 years, and those wars last an entire year, and those wars contain battles that take 8 hours, then that's not going to
Well,
be
some
useful.
people love and breathe for that. Like, why would we want to get rid of people who are just really enjoy that kind of play style.
I mean, in the past, before the block, they've always been blocks, but before the blocks were the size they are now, there were fights with thousands of people, and there were fights containing epic numbers of capital ships and super capital ships on the field and dying. So it's not going to go away. Um, and if there could be more war by having these groups be more numerous, have their borders actually touching each other, have things worth fighting over, which just aren't existing at the moment, then those wars will cause people to band together for the purpose of those wars, and we can get that tie-dye down to 10% again, just like we really want it to be.
I mean, why does it matter if there's tie dye? Tons of players don't mind fighting in tie dye. I don't see a very super valid reason for this. Don't you think that the free advertisement probably brings in just as many players as we've lost from solo smoking
I mean, it would be. I mean, if
and
Coca-Cola
like
brought
medium
out a
sized groups?
product that tasted terrible to 90%, but they had an amazing advertising campaign, then they're only selling one can of it to 90% of the users. If it's a great product, then but without a single incredible advert, then the people who drink it will keep drinking it anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it was so bad though, then why are there so many people in the Giga Blocks?
I wouldn't say how many people there's so many people in Gigablocks. I'd say look at how many people are in a Gigablocks and how everything else everywhere has died and left.
I mean, not everything's dead. You still have high sec, and like there's still some groups in low sec.
Yeah, but the groups in low sec that are particularly large are groups like the one I'm in, Snuffed Out, which is a huge content dampener in its region because of its size. Um, and again, the groups in low sec are a little bit of a mirror of the ones in null sec in that they are very large and their borders don't touch, and there's nothing to fight over.
Well, I mean, granted, you might say that. Like, there are still some smaller, medium sized groups, I'm sure, in different pockets and like NPC Nolan, like that. I mean, it's not like it's impossible for them to exist. Maybe they should just
It's
do
not
like be
impossible,
more
no.
diplomatic for them to, and they'll have an easier time, an easier go of it.
It would be very nice if people if content in this game was didn't require gentlemen's agreements to occur.
I mean, why not? That's like part of the game. That's like part of the whole meta aspect of it.
Yeah, that's like neutered, controlled content, whereas before people went to war because they wanted to take things from other people, not because, okay, we've all got our stuff, so now let's just gentlemen's agreement, we're just going to fight um, like we're playing with toys rather than we're trying to invade each other.
I mean, that's fine though. It's still fighting. Isn't
It's
that
not
what
the
you
same.
want?
It is so much less of an actual story, which is the real draw for players, than battles that are bitter and hard fought, and people are not wanting to lose ground, and other people are wanting to gain ground.
I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know, man. It seems like it's just so much of a easier way to kind of have your cake and eat it too.
It's cake without any flavor in it. I mean, the thing that brought me to this game, and something that a lot of people have said brought them to this game, is the Ubiqua Seraph um, infiltration from sometime before 2007. This was an incredibly non-consensual um, bit of PvP. Are you aware of the event?
No, you can go ahead and explain it.
It's when a group called Guiding Hand Social Club spent months and months, possibly up to a year, if I remember correctly, infiltrating another at the time major corporation, and grew to be given positions of power. And then in one moment, they executed an Imperial Navy apocalypse belonging to the CEO of the corporation and stole something like 30 billion ISK worth of loot, which at the time was an unfathomable fortune. This is the kind of story of a type of fighting and conflict in the game that had no agreements whatsoever and was incredibly hostile.
I mean, you could still do that even with gentlemen's agreements, couldn't you? Just because there's a gentleman's agreement doesn't stop a small group from doing that.
What is there for them to fight over? You give the smallest amount of actual threat to a gigablock and it won't be their SIG responding anymore. It'll be a massive blob of them because they say, oh, actually, do you know what? That's enough. You stop here.
I mean, that sounds just like they did bad diplomacy to me, though.
I would like this to be a game about war, which is a lot more what it was like before the advent of Citadels, rather than a game about everybody trying to create the stablest platform possible.
Well, yeah, but like that's what these guys have fun doing. You know, they see the numbers go up, and that's what it's about for them. I mean, there's nothing
Let,
wrong with like encouraging that playstyle. Like Scarcity's done nothing but like hammer these guys. It's time for them to get a break a little
let's
bit, I think.
let's look at a hypothetical here. Let's say for the moment that I agree that um what that them having fun doing that is okay. It is precisely that type of gameplay in groups of that size, oppressing that size and not going to war with each other at that size, which has sucked players away from other areas of the game and dampened and frozen the play styles of smaller groups who
Well, if
used
you
to
want
fight in
more
that area.
fighting, maybe, certain areas of space need to get NPC null, and then we'll have a reason to go fight those people as far as like actually being able
It
to do it easily.
actually being able to do it easily is cool. This is something I do want to pursue. It's on my website as well. This is a if we're talking about making these groups actually invadable by each other. I'm not trying to pursue the idea that one lone guy in a rifter should be able to kill a null block. I want these null blocks to be able to unseat each other from their space. This was proven to be impossible as um, goons didn't invade
Yeah,
Pappy's
I mean,
home system, and when it came time for 1DQ, it was a solved problem. For Citadel defense, it proved at that moment that all you had to do was fill the server with enough players that the other side can't, in a strategically useful way, get their 7,000 people in, and it's game over.
well, I mean
And
that's their
that's not a
fault though.
healthy state for war.
That was Pappy's fault though. They could have just gotten ahead of everything that was going on and been
So
fine.
no, because what you're saying there is that it should be absolutely okay to consider the gameplay fine if when the gameplay is log in 8 hours beforehand. You're saying that's a valid tactic when you say they should have just logged in sooner. And
What's
where does
wrong
that
with
stop?
what's wrong with logging in ahead of time? Even 8 hours. I mean, they're gonna be sitting there for hours and hours to get content anyways for these tie-dye fights.
We have a lot of people who in these groups who um, complain about, for instance, as an example, the logistics surrounding the Citadel changes. Some people were upset that the point defense guns on large and extra large structures now had to use an ammo. They were like, "Oh, it's so tedious to fill it up with all this with all this ammo." If these people don't want tedium, so what's this logging in 8 hours beforehand with 7,000 of your sorry
You
6,999 of your
just said
closest friends?
it was really really hard if not impossible to take 1DQ, and they could have done it if they had just logged in before us.
And where does that stop? Where does that
Why is
stop?
it gonna
So
stop?
so and then Imperium should have logged in 1 extra hour ahead, and then Happy should have logged in 1 extra hour ahead of that. I mean, where does this stop? I mean,
Why not
at some
just
point it becomes who can log in the fastest after downtime.
Yeah, absolutely though. What's wrong with that though? Like it's not impossible. You just have to really be dedicated. And that's what these guys are.
But they're not. That
What
was
do you
the
mean?
limit. It's like,
What are
right,
you
that's
talking about?
where we
This is
stop.
all
That's our
about like
effort limit.
the heraldry. It's all about, being belonging to a group and being part of, one of these big blocks with having all of your friends in one, spot and all of these shenanigans. So like that's what's if this is important to them, and of course it is, because if not, who's to say they don't just quit the game? That's why you can't just get rid of the blocks or like make it really difficult for them to exist, because like one, we're gonna figure out a way anyways, and two, beyond that, it doesn't even matter, because if we don't exist, where are these players gonna go?
Shall I be blunt about it? Shall I say the non-politically correct part of it?
I'm just interviewing, man.
I am absolutely okay with throwing away the desires of 20,000 people if it makes a better game for the 30,000 that quit as a result of the 20,000.
Right. Oh man, we kind of just went around and touched a ton of different stuff. So coming into this, as from this will be your third year now running, and this will be your potential second CSM term.
I certainly hope so, yeah.
What is your opinion on exactly how much CSM actually matters? You think that, so like if you had to say in actuality, how important is CSM to actually being a player representative group? Do they do what they say? Do you think they're an effective tool?
It took me a while, but the fruits of a lot of my efforts in that first year are some of them are coming into existence now. A number of the Citadel changes are identical or very similar to a lot of the things that I pushed and pushed and pushed, and things that I begged and begged and begged for, and that I did presentations from, and that I presented arguments for. A number of those things are coming together now, not just because of me, but because of a number of other people afterwards as well who started to push for it. But for instance, we are having a major Citadel revolution now. I don't think it goes far enough. I don't think it touches enough structures. We're having a major Citadel revolution now after, in the lead up to CSM 15, I was told that I wouldn't be able to get CCP to do it, that there were no possible better designs, and of course, some people saying that Citadels were absolutely fine as they are now. And yet, here we now are, because I don't take that's impossible to get done as a good enough reason to not try. Um, there are also there is also a currently under development project that I was told at FanFest by a developer is exactly based on a design that I proposed. That is in development now, and some of the important concepts that I proposed are under serious consideration and fascination by some of the CCP developers that I had spoken with towards the end of CSM's 15. So I do believe that the CSM can make a difference. I just believe that the CSM has to be giving the correct information to CCP in a way that they can understand.
Interesting. All right.
In short, I feel it is possible to make a difference, and I also feel I have already made a difference, and I want to continue that.
Fantastic. Um. All right. Phantomite, I know we cut through some of your time because I had a bit of girlfriend aggro going on.
That's okay.
Um, I am going to end this short, but in return, why don't you and me get together and we can come up with a special show? Maybe we can get you on the other side of Brisk or another no block candidate. Talk about
I'm
some of
ready.
these
I'm
issues.
I'm I'm ready to fight.
All right, fantastic. I am going to be ending the streams today. I have to ping some people, I believe, in the CSM Royale Discord and let them know I'm canceling interviews for the rest of the day. And we tried to schedule them out, but it's looking like today's not my day. So I apologize to
There's
all of you who heard that interviews were happening today, and that's why you're here. We're only gonna get Brisks and Phantomites done for the most part, and we're gonna go on and we're gonna try and reschedule these people probably for Monday. That being said, everybody, please do have a fantastic day. Phantomite, you can find him at, is it phantomite.space? What's your website? You should link it.
Phantomite.com. I will link it in the chat. It's my name as displayed on the screen with a .com on the end of it. Probably a little bit unsurprising. You can find links in there to some of my recently added page, my specifics.
Yes,
I've written
hello,
down a list of
Ashrathi.
some of my specifics.
Yes, we're about done. CSM Royale tomorrow, though, for everybody who's here. Please do show up for that. That's going to be a really big event.
I maintain that CSM Royale is possibly the biggest CSM event after seeing what it was like last year.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. Chat with you guys later.